You can't change the past, but you can change your questions. You change your questions, you can change your life.
Welcome back to the Dream Out Loud podcast. In this episode, I sit down with my good friend, Dr. Espen.
You don't need to quit smoking. You don't need to quit procrastination. It's often a little bit opposite of what people think.
And together we put a freaking masterclass when it comes to quantum healing, quantum physics, and how to literally change the reality of your life using nothing other than your belief.
The body becomes what you believe. So it has to start with a belief. And even if the belief is a stretch, like, no, you can't. Yeah, you can.
We talked about his near-death experience and how doctors said he would never be able to walk again, and how he went on to almost win the Ninja Warrior on live TV.
The doctor says, we're going to chop your leg off. And then I had a dream of maybe one day I could get on Ninja Warrior. And it's like, that'll be great for you to do that, but...
And what the power of our thoughts and the power of our beliefs have on our reality, and how we can literally shape it be any way we want it to be.
The soul doesn't see it that way. So unless you can reprogram that belief to something else that's going to serve you, you'll keep on firing and wiring unconsciously.
And we also talked about how you can use the power of quantum physics and quantum healing to literally heal any part of you and achieve optimal health.
When it comes to enlightenment, empowerment, or healing, the breath is always there, every single time.
This episode is jam-packed with value, so if you're new here, welcome to Dream Nation. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and if you're coming back, welcome back. Let's get into this episode. My man, Dr. Espen, back for round 2. Good to have you back, my man.
Great to be here.
I'm so excited to have a conversation with you again. Last time we talked all things quantum physics, quantum healing, talked manifestation. Obviously, for the past nearly 2 decades, you've devoted your entire life to studying neuroscience, everything quantum. And I want to let the listeners know, take us back to how did you actually fall into the studies, the obsession of the studies of neuroscience, the brain, quantum physics, and all of this?
It started when I was young. My brother died when I was 5. And so, when I was 5 years old, I'd woke up in the morning to a scream. It's a horrendous scream. I ran into my brother's bedroom and he was dead. And then that was the first kind of trauma that, shocked me. 2 years later, my sister was born disabled. And so as I was growing up, I was basically obsessed by 2 primary questions. One, in regards to my brother being dead, why do people take life for granted when it's so, so precious? It's not until, you either get sick or you lose it that you realize that, so much has been beautiful and all the things that you've had. And now it's, seemingly lost. And 2, in regards to my sister being born disabled, the second question that I was obsessed by was, where does sickness, disease, and suffering come from? So as I was growing up, I was haunted by learning and really understanding what it means to fully live and really understanding what it means to fully heal. And so then I understood that the nervous system is the master controller system of all of the other systems. I recognized that if I needed to be smart, I needed to learn to master my own nervous system. And this is something that a lot of people are struggling with. They're stuck in fight or flight. They haven't healed the stuff of the past and things like that. So they're repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Then I came to Australia 2005, crashed a motorcycle, broke both my legs, almost died in a hospital twice, and got the greatest gift that God could ever give me, which was that opportunity to heal myself from the inside out. Because doctors were pumping me full of drugs. I got a staph infection from the hospital and they said, mate, the easiest thing we can do right now, the best thing is to cut your leg off from the hip and down. And if we don't do that, and if the infection spreads, if you get sepsis, then you die. So the gift that I got from Spirit was to be able to heal myself. And I did. I lost 13 kilos. I knew that I was dying. I had to leave the hospital and do things my way. And breathwork and the stuff that we teach in our events now literally saved my life. So that's why neuroscience and the essence of quantum physics or quantum science has become fundamental elements for the way I live and the way I understand and see things, because if it wasn't for it, I would have been dead.
You mentioned something before about if people aren't working on the things internally, the nervous system, they'll continually repeat. Are you saying, dive in a little bit more into that? They're repeating what? What are they repeating if they're not working on the things, and how do they work on the things in the nervous system?
Good. So that's to keep it simple, right? If you understand what's called the imprint period, the age of 1 to 7 years,
yeah,
right? So when the child is young, their entire reality, their entire blueprint, their model of reality is created. So it's like source code. If you code a computer, you build the source code, and then everything on that source code will repeat itself over and over again any time and every time you start the computer, right? The human brain is very similar. It's been said that we only use 5 to 10% of our brain, and I couldn't agree more. That's very accurate. So if that's the case, then what about the other 95%? Well, the 95% is the autonomic or the autonomic part of the nervous system or the subconscious part of the nervous system. So if we don't dive into the unconscious part of the nervous system, then we're going to be repeating the same things over and over again. Let's say you're 2 years old, you're 5 years old, whatever. I remember when I was 7, actually, I was in school and I couldn't read or write really well. And you know how the teacher goes around and says, next person to read, next person to read. And it was coming closer and closer to me. And I'm just feeling my entire body lighting up. I'm like, fuck, no, I'm freaking out. I'm experiencing fear because I couldn't read well. And then, it was my turn. I stood up. I tried to read and it was just, letters are moving around. It was all blurry. And I stuttered, right? And the whole class laughed at me. And so then I realized that, that is a fear of mine. That is a trauma of mine. So it wasn't until I got older that I realized that I couldn't read or write well. Like, for example, 6.5 years at university, I've got my doctorate and all these things, but I had to really fight that challenge to be able to overcome it so that I could become who I am today. And so the reason why I say that is because most people have a lot of unresolved patterns, programs, blueprints, traumas in the unconscious mind. And it's not until we go back and actually sit with it and breathe with it and observe it from that level of, a conscious awareness that we can actually understand what these programs are. Another example is if a child is a racist, the child is not a racist. The child is seemingly a racist because of the way they've been conditioned. Most people have no idea how they've been conditioned or what that conditioning is doing. So what they can do is to go back, observe it for what it is, and ask quality questions. You can't change the past, but you can change your questions. You change your questions, you can change your life. Such as, who am I with these blueprints? Who am I with these programs? What do I truly believe about me? Because most people, we're realizing that we are creators, right? But what we're creating, we're not really aware of what it is that we're creating. Does that make sense?
Mm. I want to dive into this more because everything you're talking about, I'm so familiar with. And I don't know if you've heard that study they did with 6 monkeys. Mm-hmm. There's 6 monkeys in a cage. They give them a bunch of bananas. The monkey goes up the ladder to get the bananas, and the other ones get punished. Eventually, they beat the shit out of the monkey every single time it goes up the ladder, so then no monkeys move. They take a monkey out, they put in a brand new one, and goes up the ladder, gets the shit beaten out of him, left wondering what the fuck happened, comes back down, they put another one in, goes up the ladder, they all beat the shit out of him, including the one that just joined in. And they did it over and over and over until every monkey in there was brand new, no one went up the ladder, no one been scalded with water. And if you ask the monkey, why do you not go up the ladder and go after your bananas, aka opportunities, dreams, goals in life, he'll say, well, it's just the way things have always been done. Are you saying that these blueprints, these conditionings, are these been imprinted in our nervous system or our unconscious mind as like beliefs and conditioning, or are they the same?
Same. Often though, because it's been repeated and believed to be such a way, such as, mother and father does this, they have this argument often around the topic of money. So the child grows up not really knowing why, and of course the child is now an adult, not really knowing why they have such a destructive relationship with money, why money feels so scarce, why it feels so tight and contracted, why it doesn't feel good at all. You open up NetBank on your phone and you go, ooh, that feeling. Well, that feeling is coming from the subconscious, but it's teaching you everything you need to know. So if you open up NetBank on your phone and you go, oh, this feels so good, I'm so excited, so grateful, yes, celebrating how abundant I am, magical. But if you open up the NetBank on your phone and the average, most common feeling is that of constriction or, subtraction or fear, well, then that's the program. And this is what I say to a lot of people as well when they come to my work is, you don't have a money problem, you have a money program. Mm. And this could be disregarded if you don't have money to pay your bills, but, you and I are more abundant than 80% of the world's population that has no clean food, no clean water, and no shelter. So in countries like Australia and many people watching and listening, we are so freaking abundant. Why are we living in scarcity? You don't have a money problem, you have a money program. This can be reprogrammed, of course. That's the power of the understanding what is subconscious or unconscious and how to make it conscious.
Mm. So you're in hospital, they're telling you we're going to cut off a leg or you're going to die. Then you used everything that you've been studying and learning to essentially heal your body. You've used the power of quantum healing. Talk us through, for the people watching this, be like, what the fuck are you talking about? What is quantum healing? What actually happened to you, the process of the recovery there?
It's a great question. So the quantum is a big hype these days. Right? So I've been teaching this.
It's trending.
Trending.
Yeah, just disclaimer. He was doing it before it was cool.
Yeah, I was teaching breathwork 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was saying the power of the breath is remarkable. You know, I was saying stuff like you can completely take charge of your nervous system. You can control the phrenic nerve, the vagus nerve, the autonomic nervous system. You can completely change your state. You can do so many things with breath. By the way, the spirit comes in, the child takes its first breath, spirit leaves the body, the person takes its last breath. There is a direct correlation. Even in indigenous languages in Australia, the word spirit and breath is the same word. So I was teaching this 15 years ago, and only a few years later, everyone's heard of a guy called Wim Hof, right? And so the reason why I was teaching it then was because it didn't change my life, it saved my life. So I left the hospital, right? So the doctor goes, we'll cut your leg off or the infection spreads. And spirit came through my crown like a lightning bolt. This is the clearest I've ever been. I have never at that point in time ever experienced anything like that before. I didn't know what it was. I know what it is now. It was just, a download, a moment of clarity. Boom, straight through the crown. And spirit says, if it is to be, it's up to me. I had no idea what it meant, but I knew what I needed to do. So I walked home to the suburb in Northcote in Melbourne, where I was living at the time. And I started sitting up on my bed and just drawing the breath over and over again. It was really...
Were you learning it up to this point, or is this just an intuitive thing?
Well, I would say mostly intuitive. I was teaching a little bit of breathwork, but I had no idea what I was dabbling in. 15 years ago, I had no clue the power of the breath, right? The gift of life. You can't leave home without it, even if you tried. And it completely has... if you look at, for example, ancient religions and philosophies around the world, it's always, when it comes to enlightenment, empowerment, or healing, the breath is always there. Every single time, in meditation, in breathwork, in awareness, so many things. So I realized that there was something to it, but I didn't know what it was. And so I went the old medical route. I did all the drugs and all the things that they asked me to do, and I was losing weight. And, like now, I don't have a lot of body fat, but I lost 15 kilos, so I knew that I was dying. So modern medicine, the ambulance, for example, saved my life, but I also got the infection from hospital. Right? So what I needed to do was to follow my intuition. I went home and I started breathing. As I was sitting on my bed doing this spinal breathing that I'm teaching a lot of our students now, a lot of things from the past were coming up. So, for example, I had a hole in the side of my hip where the infection was at its worst. Every day it was about 1 liter, this is disgusting but true, 1 liter to 2 liters of pus that would come out of the side of my hip for a year plus, over a year. And I had to milk it out and try and get rid of it. It's horrible.
That's fucking
horrible. And I've got videos and pictures of this. It's like shit you wouldn't even want to see, right? So I tried everything, and I realized when I was eating unhealthy, when I was drinking alcohol, when I was stressing, the hole on the side of my hip would get bigger. Okay, so not good news. And then when I would, do breath work and meditation and things like that, it would get smaller. Okay, so I realized, okay, there's certain things I do that's improving my health, and certain things I'm doing that's making it worse. Now, when I came home from the hospital, the doctor said, we'll cut your leg off or the infection spreads. Spirit came through my crown like a lightning bolt. If it is to be, it's up to me. I said, thanks, doc. He left the hospital. I ripped the intravenous out of my arms, and I've never looked back. That's when I went home and started doing the breath. This was really interesting, Morgan. The first time I did this breath, sitting on my bed and I was breathing, spinal breathing, I passed out. And I woke up and I felt so incredible. It felt amazing. Felt peace, like the level of peace that I haven't felt, forever before. So I did it again. And as I was breathing, the images of my brother dying came up. The images of my mother slapping me across the face when she was drunk. She was drunk every day for 15 years. I grew up in an alcoholic family. All of these memories from childhood started coming up while I was breathing. And my mind was really perplexed. I'm like, why is this shit coming up? Like, I'm trying to heal my infection. This has nothing to, or does it have something to do with the traumas of childhood? So as I continued to do the breath, a lot of the wounds and traumas, including the story that I was telling you before about how, I was laughed at 7 when I tried to read in class, all of these wounds were coming up, and I recognized that these were indeed psychosomatic illnesses, issues in the tissues that were imprinted, stored in the cellular memory of my tissues, in the unconscious mind. So when I was breathing, elevating my inner energy frequency and vibration, these things were coming out. So they're not, of course, just mental or emotional, but also spiritual and chemical and many other types of dis-ease that is found in the body. And so what we do with our students is we teach them the breath, the movement, the meditation, and we're able to guide them back in time to sit with the trauma. For example, I was 7, the other students laugh at me, and then I change the story, right? So if I'm the spirit and the soul, or if I'm just the body, listeners and viewers can decide. What do you believe? You're only flesh and bone? Or there's more to you than flesh and bone? All right? Most people would say, I think I'm more. I'm a spirit, soul, source, consciousness, some sort of intelligence. I'm something more than just the 3-dimensional temporary reality, right? So if we then believe that there's more to us, perhaps spirit, than just flesh and bone, then look at it from that perspective. Why do you think I was bullied at 7? So that I could become a speaker. Why do you think I almost died in hospital twice? So that I could heal myself and go on to now having graduated 7,500 students, having helped them heal themselves. I don't heal them, they heal themselves. They're the doctor, they're the healer, but they haven't learned how yet, and that's the key.
That's so interesting. So knowing everything you know now, knowing that when diseases or pains come up in our body, they often represent something, right? So for the people people listening, not knowing what, like, for example, things in the mouth, often things we're not speaking, right? Because I'll often ask people if they say to me, I've had a friend of mine, he's got tonsillitis all the time. And I'm like, what are you not saying?
Exactly.
Like, what are you not speaking, right? Because it's our throat. So knowing everything you know now, what was the hips about?
As a good one, fear.
Fear. Do you know now fear of what? What was it?
Fear of not being enough. Fear of not having enough. Fear of not being worthy enough. Fear of not being loved enough.
So interesting. So is it true that every single disease we have actually has its own vibration and frequency?
Yes, to the closest that we can measure. And Dr. Hawkins started this many, many years ago. Dr. David Hawkins started this with the Hawkins scale of consciousness, also known as the Hawkins map of consciousness, when he was able to assimilate certain bandwidth of frequencies. So it's easy to say, yeah, fear vibrates at 100 oscillations or vibrations per second, but we can't say 100% for sure. But the data is remarkably accurate. So if we take a scale from 0 to 700, 0 is death. If there is no oscillation or no vibration, there is no life. And 700 is the highest end of the scale, which is complete enlightenment.
Have they measured, they have measured people out of 700 or?
Yeah, over many, many years. I think Dr. Hawkins did this for over 30 years before he passed away.
Wow.
So phenomenal. And they used a lot of applied kinesiology, as in muscle testing and Kirlian photography and other evidence-based techniques to be able to discover this. I think in general, without saying, I can give you, double-blind studies, peer-reviewed articles, even though they do exist, what I think a lot of our students have benefited from is reading the book, for example, Power versus Force by Dr. Hawkins, or Letting Go by Dr. Hawkins, and really feeling and tuning into it to see if that's right for them. What we do know is, to keep it simple, a low frequency or a low vibration equals sickness and disease and the things you don't want, and a high vibration equals the things that you do want. And that's where we guide our students back into their primary fear, back into guilt.
A primary fear?
Their primary fear.
What's that?
Well, think about it. Everyone has different fears, right? All kinds of different fears. A fear of this, a fear of that. But really what unites us all is the human experience of fear. So it's not from the aspect of the spirit, because the spirit doesn't fear. The soul doesn't wake up in the morning quivering. It just loves. It just is. I am that I am. But the human experience, or the temporary, 5 senses, 6 if you include thought, experiences fear as we are in this lower dimension. So then what unites us in this dimension is that we all experience fear from time to time. But your fear is going to be different to mine. Make sense? So what we do is we guide people back in time, closed eye meditation, hypnosis, to sit with, and they always find it because we're doing a disassociated kind of timeline experience. And they find a trauma or a major experience of fear that happened in the past. Often is from the imprint period, the earliest stages of life, but it doesn't have to be. It could be there in 20s or 30s or something. Then they find this fear, and then they sit with it and they feel it. And they often feel, oh my gosh, this is in my kidneys, or this one's in my lower back, or I'm getting real tight in the neck. So they can actually get more conscious of where it is in the body. Then we change the story. from the aspect of the spirit. Hang on, how did that happen for me? What am I supposed to learn? God never said...
Give it a new meaning.
100%. Because this is a meaningless universe.
Yeah.
It's a meaningless universe. Like, your meaning is different to my meaning, so it's meaningless. Not that it's not worth anything, but it's meaningless because you get to create the meaning.
Yeah.
And the event is neutral. And this is what most people don't understand. Oh, hang on, my dad beat my mum up. My husband left me, or whatever it is. They give it the meaning of having more drawbacks than benefits. If you give any situation, any event in your life more drawbacks than benefits, you're going to suffer because it pulls away your life force. It steals away your presence, right? It happened to you. Therefore, you are a victim of it. The soul doesn't see it that way. So unless you can reprogram that belief to something else that's going to serve you, you'll keep on firing and wiring unconsciously the same kind of program that's going to be stealing away your presence and your life force. Now you're not present with your child or with your lover because you're feeling like something bad happened to you. The soul wouldn't see it that way. So you can change the question from how did that happen to me to how's it happening for me. And since you can't change the past, you might as well change the meaning. So it's a meaningless universe, but what matters is the meaning you choose to give it, not the autonomic response of the past.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
100%. So all these vibrations, I want to open up a conversation. I know where you stand on it, and I want to open it up as deep as it wants to go. If we look at the consciousness level, right? Everything you just said, all the lower levels of consciousness are about, diseases. Mostly, I know for a fact that cancer is mostly a conflict in the body or anger. And often at my programs, I work on people on actually removing anger and stuff. And sometimes people get pissed off and they're like, why do I have to revisit this shit? I'm so angry. Well, you can either do it right now for a quick few minutes or keep holding it forever and run the risk of potentially bringing some horrible disease into your body because you're just storing this shit. People hold anger and then it's like drinking poison expecting someone else is going to die. They hold on to all this shit from the past. So my question is, knowing that the lower levels of the vibration, anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, all these sorts of shitty things down there are where most diseases and things happen. When people have diseases, they get medical, they get pharmaceuticals, yada, yada, yada. Do you think that we're living in a society that is purposely doing things to lower our vibration and consciousness through diet, through things we view, consume?
Yes and no. The no component is that this experience that we have in the upper third dimension as humans experiencing, this reality is collective. It means that the collective vibration of what we are experiencing right now is inside all of us. So there's no darkness on the outside apart from the darkness that's within. So it's easy to point the fingers at the governments and at people and organizations and say, I am this way because of them. And conspiracy theories do this very effectively. And, I might be considered one of them in terms of conspiracy theorists, but everything that I've said has come to fruition. I know, I can see things, I can understand pattern cycles and seasons. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I understand history, so I can see what's coming. So that's one thing. But the point is, it's dangerous to focus on fear because rather you're down the rabbit hole, you're not down the rabbit hole. Whatever you focus on is what you find. So if you want to be a conspiracy theorist and you want to look at what's happening in the world, at least see it from the place of, I am the creator of my reality. Everything around me, and this is scientifically proven in quantum physics, everything around me is a direct projection or a reflection, a mirror of what's happening inside of me. So if I am to show up and make a change in the world, it has to start with me. It's always going to be an inside job. You don't have to go without when you go within. So that's the first thing. That's the part where, hang on, let's look at the world and let's be clear that this is a projection of our consciousness reflected back to us exactly what we need to do to heal. Okay? Secondly, there are powerful forces at play in this world that have a tremendous vested interest in shutting us down from evolving into the spiritual enlightened beings that we already are. So you got to be very, very careful, or at least conscious of where you place your attention and what you understand is going on in the world and who you allow into your field. So I would say there are certainly people out there that definitely are trying to slow down the expansion of consciousness using horrible, horrible tools, techniques, and weapons to do so, inhumane stuff. But I understand that also is a trait of me that I haven't healed yet. So I'm willing to take full responsibility for everything of how I show up in the world. So it's a yes or no answer from me.
Do you think that the ancestors that came way before us, the Egyptians, if we think all the ancient tribal, do you think they knew a lot more things when it comes to consciousness and this higher power than we currently know?
Well, that's proven. We know that. That's not a hypothesis. That's absolutely true.
Explain. What do you know about this space?
Well, let's look at the pyramids in Egypt, for example, 3,500 to 5,000 years ago. They're so accurately created that today in 2024, we cannot duplicate them. We cannot replicate them. We don't have the tools and technologies. So we either know that one, we were more advanced as a civilization in the past, or two, maybe we had help from extraterrestrials or something else, maybe both. But nonetheless, we cannot do that today. So yeah, we were way more advanced in the past than we currently are now. And with that in mind, could we look to the past and learn some things? Absolutely. Could we understand the power of consciousness is the only way, that love is the only way we will avoid the 6th mass extinction of mankind? It's just so simple.
The 6th mass extinction of man.
So we've gone extinct 5 times. We know this with the cycles and the seasons. Things have happened over and over again. So if we don't actually look at how we're evolving, if we don't look at how we're, walking this planet and treating this planet, we know that it's not possible for humans to survive. We're heading into extinction, as we understand it's not going to be inhabitable on this planet. So I believe the only thing that's going to bring us home to the truth of who we are is unconditional love and the expansion of consciousness and understanding that unity consciousness is real and that we all are one. There's no way around it. And there will be people suppressing that and trying to, have more in the detriment of others. But people are waking up fast. And, with the last 5 years of COVID and things that we've seen, the darker the dark, the brighter the light. For me, in my hypothesis, with my patients and students, I'm seeing things toggle on, like things in a superhuman nature that I've never seen in clinical practice ever before. People healing themselves in a 20-minute, 30-minute, 40-minute breath work that they've been dealing with for 10, 20
Give us an example.
Oh, man, I forgot so many. So, for example, in my last event, I had this lady, chronic shoulder issue, 6.5 years, had not been able to lift her shoulder up, quite skeptical, didn't really know about the breath and how it would work. She's breathing, right? And as her heart field is opening, as she's experiencing this immense amount of electricity in her hand, she's feeling grace and love and presence. She's feeling connected for the first time in however long. I can't recall what she said. She comes out of the breath work, bawling her eyes out, going like this, look at my shoulder. I have not been able to do this for 6.5 years. I've done everything, chiro, physio, osteo, rehab, the whole lot. And the other day as well, another lady, she was told by her doctor that she's going blind. You will be going blind because she had trauma to her eyes when she was younger. She's not shed a tear for over 15 years. So apparently the doctor said, no, your tear ducts are dried up. You're going blind. And she believed it. She believed it. She did not have the resources to create her own belief. So she borrowed that belief, from the doctor. She comes to the event, she does the breath, and she stands up and she's waving her hands like a crazy person. And then the microphone comes over. She's
crying.
She's bawling her eyes and going, look at my tears. I'm not going blind. And then she told the story. And it goes on and on and on and on. I had the gentleman, he was on my Instagram the other day, 2 hip surgeries, like bilateral, which means both side, labral tears, like completely torn his hip joints. Went to the doctors, had the surgery, came out of hospital, gently started doing the rehab. The doctor goes, yeah, you can go back to doing gentle weights. He does a squat, crack, rips them both apart again, right? Just cannot believe it. How could this happen? Goes and has them done again. And now he's basically in his 20s going, I can't walk. I can't play sports. I can't move. He's feeling really sad. He comes to the event, does the 3 days with us, does the breathing, and we've got a video of this, and he's standing up and he's shaking as he's holding the microphone, bawling his eyes out, squatting up and down, going, look, I can move my hips. And just this beautiful young man's just crying with such grace and gratitude because he was able to heal himself. And I think this is the key. So just for the listeners and viewers, we don't heal, fix, cure, or treat anyone. But when they understand, when you listeners understand that inside of you there is an immense amount of power, there is this hidden dormant tools and technologies that have been there since you were created, which is basically you are eternity embodied in temporary time. When you can tap into the essence of unconditional energy, which is who your spirit is, there's nothing you cannot do.
What's up, Dream Nation? Have you ever wondered how far ahead your life would have already been if you had got access to this type of content at a younger age? Look, this is why I need your help. I'm trying to build the #1 personal development platform out there to teach you guys the tips, tricks, and attitude of what it takes to live your dream life and to bring the type of education that we all wish we had in school. This show only grows by word of mouth and new subscribers, so it would mean the world to me if you could smash that subscribe button right now, leave us a 5-star written review, or drop a comment below and share this episode with a friend. I would be forever grateful. All right, now let's get back into this episode. So if we have me, I wear glasses. Technically, my eyes would be brand new eyeballs in 2 years when the cells rejuvenate. So why is it I need glasses again in 2 years if they're brand new eyeballs? And because my earliest memory is, you have to wear glasses now. So it's such a deep-rooted belief is I have bad vision. Then I have 30 years of evidence to prove that I have bad vision. So every single time the cells rejuvenate, it remembers the old belief. And I've contemplated that. I'm like, if I could somehow dislodge that belief, like that would probably be one of the most deep-rooted beliefs because I've had it since I got glasses when I was like 4 or something, right? If I could dislodge that, would my eyes start to heal? One time, this is the first time I've ever actually shared this on the podcast ever. So one time, we're doing a mushroom journey and I had this insane vision of my right eye especially, okay? Because my right eye is actually like, I'd be legally blind in this eye. So I'm really only seeing my left one. I had this insane thing of everything happening was like going and actually healing my eye. And it was saying to me, it's like, give it 2 years. Give it 2 years. We've just done the work. We've done the work. And I'm like, this is fucking wild. And then I sat down with an optometrist the other day, and they said to me, the reason this will never, ever work, and also because I can't get laser on it, is because the nerves never got connected properly. What's your view on that? If you were me, and they said, this is what's happened, how would you look at that, knowing all the things you know now?
Firstly, it comes down to the oldest rule in epigenetics, by Professor Bruce Lipton, which is what you believe you achieve. And this has to be the first place, because if there's a deep-rooted unconscious belief that, that's not going to work, well, then it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. So you need to choose your belief. And then sometimes people say, well, you can't just choose to believe this or this. And my question is, why the fuck not? Why not? Why don't you choose to believe that you can do anything you wanted? I'm in my 40s. My biological age is 30. My average heart rate is 120. Heart rate variability is 128. I can run faster, lift stronger. I can do stuff in a week that people can't do. Some people can't do in 3 months. My age is reversing as I'm getting healthier, fitter, and stronger. I have overcome obstacles that people could not overcome. And everything that's inside of me is inside of them, but I have a different belief. I've programmed this person. My beliefs aren't there because I think maybe that'll work one day. My beliefs are there because that's what the belief needs to be for me to get to mastery, for me to get to where I want to go. So my beliefs are tailored based on what I want to do, and then I fire and wire them over and over again. Okay? So
how do you fire and wire? Explain that.
So you repeat it. So it's a language, right?
Like an affirmation?
Well, affirmations, feelings, beliefs, sitting in meditation with it like it's already done, prayer, breath work. I imprint it.
So you're seeing the ideal vision of you want, or are you chanting like a belief or something? Or
all of the above. It's already done.
Yeah.
It's already done. And this is what I've done over and over again. For example, when I broke both my legs, as I said before, in Australia, and then, the doctor says, we're gonna chop your leg off, and I'm starting in a wheelchair. And then I had a dream of maybe one day I could get on Ninja Warrior. And it's like, that'll be great for you to do that. But, with, recovering from 2 broken legs and that infection, and that's not going to happen. I was like, of course it's going to happen. Let's make it happen. And I smashed that buzzer, because I had already chosen that that's done. And so the first thing, if you want to achieve anything, call it healing your right eye or the optic chiasm across that in whatever you're like connecting the nerve again, like you're mentioning, it's already done. Mm-hmm. That's already done. There's not going to happen unless you choose to believe that that's done. And by done, I don't mean it's happening. No, it's done. Okay? Because you're working across timelines. This is a little bit esoteric, but your spirit's not bound by space and time. right? So you're sitting in this current timeline, but there's Morgans across gazillions of timelines experiencing those timelines in the same time. So if you look at understanding, like Einstein said, there is no past, there is no future, you're working across all timelines. So in one timeline, you're already fully healed. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in another dimension, another reality, another timeline, it's already healed. So now that we can achieve that, there's a reason why Professor Bruce Lipton created the epigenetics or really realized epigenetics, because it's a fundamental constituent of truth. And he said, it's the biology of belief. That was the name of the book. The biology of belief. The body becomes what you believe. So it has to start with the belief. And even if the belief is a stretch, like, no, you can't. Yeah, you can. That
Just continually reconditioning it.
over and over again. And what does the belief need to be for you to make the rest of your life the best of your life? Once that's done, the rest of it is elimination, purifying the body. And this is where a lot of people really stuff it up. They like, to put it short, if I was to take, say, 1,000 of my graduates and interviewed them all and asked them, really, what's the cause of your suffering? What's the destruction in your life? What is it that you've been doing that's not serving you? It really, really comes down to emotions. Most people have never been trained to understand emotions. They've never been able to deal with their emotions. They've never had a chance to sit and talk about those emotions, as in, how did it happen for you? So the emotions cloud reason, and they lead to a lot of behaviors that are toxic. For example, you don't, drink wine or eat chocolate or, scroll endlessly on social media because you want to not be present or you want to do something that's not good for you. You do it to feel better, right? So the emotion is a significantly underrated aspect, because people say to me, how can you do the things that you do? Run, multi-million-dollar companies and do this and be in peak performance and do this and have beautiful relationships and be present with your child. It's because I understand the equilibration of emotion, because I've taken 2 decades now to work on myself to bring the emotion from a low frequency to a high frequency. And everything, this is my quest, everything in the past that I have not fully healed, anything in the past that I cannot wholeheartedly say thank you, I love you so much for, anything in the past that I'm not grateful for, I have not healed yet. And that is my quest. And then I go back in time and I liberate energy. Okay, so if we look at everything as energy, right? A trauma steals energy. Gratitude will give you energy. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if I go back and I find all the traumas in the past and I ask the question, how did that happen for me? I can turn fear to fuel, trauma to transformation. My S becomes a part of my message. So that's the key. When you understand that emotions create habits, you heal your emotions, you don't need to quit smoking. You just don't want to smoke. You don't need to quit procrastination because you have passion. You see? So it's often a little bit opposite of what people think. I want to be healthy, I want to be fit. So why do you find yourself self-sabotaging? Because you have not equilibrated the emotions.
What is the quantum field?
The quantum field. Okay, so the quantum field...
In a nutshell.
Okay, so this is... We got to start at that. We didn't get finish.
Yeah.
So the word quantum... It's the hype word, okay? It's like, what is this quantum thing? In essence, it refers to the essence of quantum physics or quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go back...
Yeah, explain to us, for the listeners, okay? Explain to us quantum physics, essentially. The thing that Albert Einstein tried to figure out for 70 years. But explain to us so these guys can really understand it. The best way, I guess, how I understood it was the double slit experiment.
Great one.
Explain to them the essence of quantum physics with that.
Okay. So firstly, I'm not a physicist, but I have been studying this within a session for the last 2 decades. So I've got a little bit of an idea. But of course, for every listener and viewer, do your own research. If you go back 100 years, Max Planck became known as the founder of quantum theory when he discovered a whole range of laws of nature that shows us that we're more energy than matter, more wave than particle. Okay? So when we understand that everything is energy, seeing, this is the way I look at it, seeing everything, experiencing everything, relating to everything as energy is quantum. Okay? So I understand who and what I am. I am 99.9, and if you want to be accurate, 99 point, and then 8 nines, right? Pure untapped consciousness. That is non-physical, so non-matter consciousness. And less than 1% of me is matter, is body. Okay? So we know then that who I am is energy. So that's quantum for me. Understanding that there is a field, scientifically proven field, of quote unquote divine intelligence that is not just inside of us, but it's actually who we are. And this quantum field, unified field, as the scientists call it, consciousness is another word for it, spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, is who we are. And it's expressed in a unique form, which for you happens to be in that body in this way, in this time.
It's so wild. So explain to us the test, the double slit experiment. Can you explain how that rolled out? Because the people still listening, that might be like, I kind of get it, but it's still all this airy-fairy. Because before I really looked into this stuff, I was like, it's spiritual mumbo-jumbo. But it's actual physics and science on how it sort of works. So explain what did they find with the double slit experiment? Or what is it?
Imagine this. Everything is energy. You have these little balls of energy. Okay?
Little protons or some shit they shot.
Electrons.
Yeah.
Right? And so they create these two slits, two holes. Okay? And then they shoot these balls of energy, little electrons, through these two slits, and they're observing where they're landing behind. Okay? Which is interesting. And they realized that when no one's observing, it would land in a completely random fashion. Okay? So then they thought, hang on, of course, it's the consciousness of the observer that changes it. Because we know, through the work of Dr. Emoto, for example, out of Japan, that if I'm observing you with love, there will be an actual structural change to you based on me observing you from love, compared to if I'm observing you from a place of hate. All right? So if you talk to a plant, you're ugly, you're disgusting, I hate you, the plant will get sick. But if you talk to a plant in a way, you're so beautiful and I love you, the plant will actually get better and improve. And they did that by actually speaking to water and then freezing it and looking at the crystalline sacred geometry structure of the water from fear compared to love, or from hate compared to love. So that was the first work with Dr. Emoto. And then they came to the double slit experiment, which is a different experiment. Now, they've done this for decades. They still cannot explain it, but they know it's real. So back to the experiment. So they fire these little balls of energy, little electrons, when someone's observing through a slit, and then they do it again when no one's observing. Okay? And then they find two completely different things. So they would land in a perfect pattern, okay? And then they'd change it, and now they would land in a completely random fashion.
Like so, everywhere.
Everywhere.
Splattered everywhere.
No structure. Okay, so what they realized was, hang on, when someone's observing it, and by the way, the experiment's exactly the same. And I don't think I'm doing it the best justice here because I'm kind of going around it.
They take like an hour to explain it.
If you want to keep it simple, when they're firing these bolts of electrons and they're going through the two slits, when someone was observing it, they would land very differently to when someone was not observing it. Okay? But the experiment was exactly the same. So what they determined was that it's as if consciousness, the unified field, if you want to keep it scientific, is aware of when it's being observed. And it's as if the consciousness of the observer, that is you, for example, observing your relationships, observing your finances, observing your right eye and the healing, will change based on how it is being observed. Make sense? So back to Dr. Emoto. I don't think I can heal. It's not going to heal. It's already healed. Interesting. Different outcome. So then what they did, and here's the interesting thing, with the double slit experiment, is they removed every single consciousness observer and they placed a little camera in there instead. And now the little camera, which is not infused with human consciousness, or at least the observer, is now watching the experiment. And the actual electrons would land in a perfect alignment, directly in line with the slit. So what does that tell us? You don't need to have a human observer to change the outcome, because the field knows that it's being observed, even with a camera. So this is what we call the observer effect. So basically, to summarize it, the double slit experiment has shown that consciousness, the universe, is aware of when someone's observing, and it's aware of when it's not being observed, as in consciousness and not being conscious, and it changes based on how it's observed.
Therefore, things will only exist in our reality when we're actually focusing on them.
100%. The moment you stop to place attention upon it, it's not a functional reality in this dimension.
It's such I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong here, I think Albert Einstein tried to prove it wrong for the majority of his career. And he gets as like one of his final things he wrote, he's like, because him and another scientist were going against it, and he's like, it doesn't exist. And the other guy was like, it does.
Believe it.
For about 50 years, I think he did. And then he wrote a letter, and he's just like, okay, I'm pretty much hanging my hat up. I've spent the last 50 years trying to figure this out, trying to prove it wrong, and I haven't. So because of that, look the other way. Like, it's got to be this, right? So it's such a complex thing. What I'm curious to know, so as entrepreneurs, a lot of people who view this podcast, they're entrepreneurs. We're all wanting to achieve peak performance. Like you said, you're in your 40s, like you're just fucking dialed, like your health's insane. I train with you. How can we use everything you know about quantum physics, quantum science, the quantum world to really biohack our health and get peak performance?
Great question, man. And this has been the quest of my life. So in my model, I have 8 areas of life. And my quest, and I'm not there and I'm not perfect, but I'm getting close, is to master each of the 8 areas of life. So physical health, mental, emotional, financial, relationships, personal development, career, vocation, mission, business, spiritual fulfillment and purpose, and time. So that's my quest, to master those areas. So I had to take a step back and ask myself, who am I? Okay, I'm spirit. I'm consciousness having a temporary human experience. What am I? I'm energy. Okay, so if I am the eternal embodied in temporary time and I am energy, is there a limit to me? And the answer is no. So hang on. I'm all that has ever been, will always be, spirit. Okay? There is no time. I'm here in the human experience and everything is energy. So I devoted myself to being a master of energy. How do you become a master of energy? You peel back the layers, you remove the interference. It's not going anywhere, Morgan. It's not trying to become something. It's peeling back the layers of interference in between how you're operating in this temporary human experience and the truth of who you are. So you remove interference. Every person has thousands of wounds, traumas, indoctrinations, habits, and things that they don't like. Purify your life. Let light, which is who we are, transmute and flow through the vessel with less interference. To give an example, an X-ray vibrates at a very high frequency, and I can shoot that X-ray through your body and capture it on a film behind you, and I can see you. But I can't put my hand through your shoulder because the vibration of this is not as high as the X-ray. So if I can raise my energy frequency and vibration up, I can come to the point of peak performance in any area of life. But it starts with the opposite of what people are doing. They're trying to get to somewhere, right, outside of themselves. I want to lose 20 kilos. I want to, make $1 million. I want to call in the special person into my life. They're going outside of themselves, but that's the problem. You need to turn the attention back within and remove any interference from energy, frequency, vibration, light, really, waves of light flowing through your vessel. And the way we do that is by removing interference. So it's not, as I said before, going anywhere, it's coming home.
So interference being traumas?
Anything and everything. Anything that doesn't serve you anymore. So traumas, absolutely. Patterns, habits, emotions, and standards. Like, honestly, people have set standards, and I'll be a bit blunt on this because I hope that your listeners and viewers will take it, with love. I'm sharing this with love. Well, some of the shit that people are putting up with in their lives is fucking unreal. They're okay with, eating shit food every day. They're okay with not, eating or drinking clean water. They're okay with the things that they're doing. And I had a lot of suffering. Like, I'm born and raised in a family where alcoholism was on a daily basis, where things were not in coherence. And I needed to really take a good look at myself and recognize that if I want to go to this level, if I want to take my companies from 5 million to 5 million to 15 million, I can't be playing at a 5 million a year level. It's just not going to happen. Einstein said this, you cannot solve a problem by the same level of thinking that created it, right? So if you then look at something like spiral dynamics by Dr. Clear Graves, understanding the, 7 or 8, depending on how you look at it, levels of consciousness. If you're stuck at the moment in this level and you want to achieve something at a higher level, you're going to have to go to the higher level and ask the question, how would a person at this level solve the problem that I'm currently experiencing? So for example, if I'm doing 5 million turnover a year, how do I get to 15 million? I've got to think like a decamillionaire at least. If I'm now experiencing my body not being healthy, how would an elite athlete solve or tackle this problem? So you got to come up to a higher level, preferably 2 levels above where you currently are, and solve the problem from that level. Okay, so for me, standards is massive. I've always looked to myself and demanded the best. And, like if a person looks in the mirror right now and cannot love themselves for the body that they're in, they've got 2 freaking choices. Either 1, continue to be less than you can, or 2, raise your standards. Raise your standards to what they need to be for you to live an extraordinary life. This is what we do as leaders, right? We lean into discomfort. I love discomfort. I love it.
So have you got like a bit of a practice or something that these guys are listening to, like, okay, great. So I've got to go forward into the future me, the one who has the results I want. And then is it like a practice of you like sitting in meditation, actually asking like a visualization practice, I'm assuming, getting into the body of the person who has everything already and asking that person the question? How do you sort of do the process of speaking to the $15 million version of you?
So this is a great question. And these tools that you mentioned are really good tools, but they're still outside tools, okay? Or tools that are beyond you at this point. So what I would do first is turn the attention within, and I would voluntarily submit myself into the most extreme yet congruent amount of emotional healing. So I teach a 3-day program called Quantum Advanced. Every student needs to do this 4 times a year until they're emotionally equilibrated back to gratitude. Because if a person is not vibrating at gratitude as their primary benchmark of emotion, they're not attracting what they want. This is the bottom line. This is one of the latest words of the late, great Dr. Wayne Dyer. He said, you do not manifest what you want. And everyone's like, whoa, what do you mean? That's the law of attraction, right? Yeah, but it's a half-truth. So you don't manifest what you want. You think you do. You manifest what you are vibrationally. That's the truth. So what's the secret to manifestation? The secret to the law of attraction, the real secret of the secret, is to raise your vibration. How do you raise your vibration? You got to heal the stuff that's inside of you that's dragging it down. You look at the people in your household or your friends or other, people that are in your field, and that's very important to be impeccably clear with the people that you have in your inner circle, but it has to start with you. So the way I do it is I go back in time, like I mentioned before, and I equilibrate every single trauma, everything of the past that is not that of gratitude, and I equilibrate it back home to love. That has to be the process over and over and over and over and over again until all of those things, I go back to the vision of my brother dying. I'm 5 years old and I'm holding a blue child. Could you imagine that trauma? And I'm holding that blue child and I'm sitting in meditation and I'm feeling the young aspect of Espen, feeling the sadness and the grief and the horror. But I'm also feeling this immense amount of gratitude because my brother died. He was never blessed with the opportunity to live. And every day when I put my feet on the ground, my right foot is thank you, my left foot is love you, because I get to live. I get to stand and walk. My sisters never walked. With that in mind, I have wholehearted gratitude for those 2 experiences of the past, because now I can live for the rest of my life with a set of values that most people will miss out on for their entire existence. So gratitude is the fundamental constituent of manifesting something. It's the ultimate state of receivership. So if you can't go back and equilibrate the past to gratitude, wholehearted gratitude, you've got some work to do. If you want to live an extraordinary life, heal your emotions, turn fear to fuel, and then you can be a master of energy.
Dude, this has been fire. Where can everybody find you on social media? Check out everything you do.
Many different ways. Go to Dr Espen, DRESPEN.com, and Instagram, that sort of stuff. I think the podcast is really good. I think it's episode number 14. I do a thing for peak performance. It's called the Top 10 Biohacking Secrets for Peak Performance in Life and Business. That's going to be something to geek out on.
When are you writing a book?
Oh, the book is currently being written as we speak.
Are you?
Yeah.
Nice. I'm going to start writing. I said I was going to start writing in December. So maybe I'll start writing on December 31 just so I can stay true to what I said. Beautiful. When is it coming out? Next year?
Yeah, next year, 2024. Now, this is the point. I know that we've talked about a lot of things and we could have gone deeper in so many different ways. And I talk very fast. So firstly, thank you for having me. Secondly, go back and listen to this podcast again. And what I love to do is to pause an interview like this when I've heard something that struck me, and then I go and apply it. So don't just listen to it and then go listen to another one. You go and listen to this podcast. And when we talk about emotions or the double slit experiment or quantum science, go back and write it down. What are the traumas of the past? What are my standards in finances and relationships and so on and so forth? And when you pause it and you write it out, you could make this interview, you could make it life-changing rather than being an entertainment.
Yeah.
You know, and then sharing it with as many people as you can is absolutely vital in this time of the Great Awakening.
Yeah. Dude, final question. If you were to go back to your 18-year-old self and give him 30 seconds of advice, what would you tell him?
Young man, please remember to stay humble, but never let that dim your light. Go and shine and make the world a better place.